The foundation also teaches teachers and the community how to be inclusive. And there's many, many layers on how inclusivity. Welcome to The Learner's Lens, where we reimagine education from the ground up. We are Wildly Inclusive Learning Collective, a nonprofit and Agile Learning Center microschool. We are a community of change makers committed to self-directed education, radical inclusivity, and equity for every learner. Join us as we explore what it means to build educational spaces that are affirming for neurodivergent learners, LGBTQ+ youth, and BIPOC communities. Spaces where learners' autonomy, safety, and belonging come first. Whether you're a parent, educator, advocate, or just curious about alternative education, you're in the right place. Let's get wildly inclusive.
We are Wildly Inclusive Learning Collective, a 501c3 nonprofit who focuses on providing alternative education advocacy through community outreach to ensure affirming educational environments for learners of all ages, abilities, and neurotypes. That is our official mission of a lot of words. What does that mean in practice? What do we actually do?
So what that means, what we actually do, it's actually a really broad spectrum. We hold classes and we do a lot of teacher training and community training about being truly inclusive. And being truly inclusive means supporting every learner, no matter what age, where they're at in a specific place. On top of that, we teach about self-directed education. And I know this is your favorite subject to talk about, so why don't you explain what self-directed education is?
Yes, so I joined this project coming from a space of being a really huge advocate for self-directed education. And I got into that space before I was even a parent. So many parents that I meet today that are finding themselves as unschoolers or self-directed education at home, they got into it because that's what their kids kind of needed or demanded from them. And I was one of those weirdos that as a nanny in my 30s, I was reading books about unschooling and Sudbury Valley schools and just thought, oh, this is how learning actually happens. And so for a decade, I've been really interested in divesting from a school system that tells kids what to learn, when to learn, how to learn it, and how to show that you learned it. So it doesn't really matter if it's public school, private school, Montessori, Waldorf. Eventually, they all have a curriculum that says third graders need to know X, and you're going to show you've learned X by doing this project or by doing this test. It has no room for creative expressions of what you've learned, learning it in a different way, or a different timing. Not all kids are ready to read at 7. Some kids want to read at 4. Some kids want to read at 9. So self-directed education to me is a liberating practice that you look at this young person and you say, I trust that you are naturally curious. I trust that if I expose you to all the tools in this society, that you're going to know which tools you need to learn when, which to a lot of people is really radical.
Yeah, that's the opposite of what we've been taught. And I love Neil deGrasse Tyson when he said, all children are scientists, and it's us that puts out that fire. And which is so interesting because, directly out of school, I did the high school, I did the college, and I got all the fancy degrees, and then I quit everything and became a yoga teacher, and just went from there. And it wasn't until I went to massage school that I realized the whole way we teach children is just almost so backwards. We were able to, as adults, we were able to retake tests. And we were able to find a quiet space around no one. We were able to get up and move our bodies. And that was my first, and this was before kids, that was my first introduction to almost a self-directed learning. Yes, there was a curriculum. We were adults. We chose to be there. But the freedom we had, we even could go walk out of the classroom and walk around the lake and come back. It was the coolest experience. And I remember thinking, Had my high school and middle school, elementary school been like this, I'd be in such a different place today. So that was my experience. And actually, it wasn't until we met and started talking that I really realized that what we were doing at home with my two neurodivergent children was self-directed learning. And I've seen them make leaps and crazy bounds that I don't think they would have in any other setting. And, what do you say to parents when they said, oh, my child needs a schedule, my child needs a curriculum, they have to learn X, Y, and Z? How do you come about that?
So I really come from a place that I'm saying that self-directed education is a very valid, possible, very effective way of learning. And there are some brains out there that do thrive on curriculum. And you'll actually find a lot of unschoolers who, when the child starts asking, you will pull in the specific curriculum that they need. So let's say they haven't absorbed reading in a natural way. They're 8, 9, 10, and they actually say, no, I'm struggling. I really want to learn how to read. So it's not a dogmatic against curriculum. It's really whose motivation is being listened to. Is it the parents' motivation of, I need to check off all these boxes because I need to feel like I'm a good homeschooling parent? Or is it the kids? Now, yes, I know some autistic children who love checking the box of their curriculum daily tasks and cannot skip a day. Most children, though, I think, given actual freedom, do not want to be told what to learn and when to learn it.
Exactly. And think of the thing, like how you learn and how I learn. If someone tells me I need to learn this, I just don't. And I remember very distinctly in 8th grade, I'm from Pennsylvania, and we used to go to Gettysburg and all those cool places because we were close. And I was so excited to go. And then on the bus, they gave us a worksheet we had to fill out. Mm-hmm. And the minute that they handed me that worksheet, I was like, I'm not doing anything. And I read nothing the entire time we were there. I didn't learn. I purposely didn't learn anything because they told me I had to fill out this worksheet, when before I was so excited to go and experience all the things that I had already experienced before, but I was older now and we had just done our unit study on it, and it squashed it. So that, when I look back, it's just so interesting to see how different things can be.
And what also happens with worksheets in a group setting is, even if you have a rule follower who's going to do the worksheet, if another kid says, oh, look at this cool shell, or wherever you are, they'll say it's not on the worksheet, and they'll skip over it.
Yeah, so they just missed a whole piece of the experience of life.
So while we understand that public schools are going to operate within a curriculum structure, our foundation does continued ed that helps bring at least elements of self-directed education. I think a big part of SDE is also consent-based, and actually getting consent from the young person in order to do something. And when you really start looking at consent on autonomy, it's a little frightening how little exists in private or public mainstream schools. And so we know that we're not going to be able to reinvent the public education wheel overnight. I mean, we can try,
dream, but it's
but we just want to bring just what is self-directed education. Like, if you've only gone to one train of learning with teaching, if you get one teacher training track, you may not even have thought, what does consent look like between an adult in power and a young person?
Right. And if you only take that one track, you might not be teaching to all the different learning styles out there. And while self-directed education is part of what we teach, the foundation also teaches teachers and the community how to be inclusive. And there's many, many layers on how inclusivity works. But that self-directed learning, but also having a classroom that's inclusive for everyone, including neurodivergent children, including LGBTQ plus children, and making sure that everybody is having their needs met as we move through, as they get their education, as they learn, as they thrive, as they hopefully grow and become lifelong learners.
So what we like to say is our foundation is this big idea of inclusivity meets self-directed education. And then underneath our foundation, we have a learning space that is the practice.
Yes. So this is the Wildly Inclusive Co-op. And now when you hear the word co-op, you think lots of different things. But we are also a multifaceted co-op. While we're in the initial stages, and we'll talk more about that, we are growing and we are reaching out. And while it is said to be a co-op, it is going to be something much bigger than you would typically see as a co-op. So our co-op.
So at our co-op, what does inclusion look like at our co-op?
Oh man, inclusion, it's just, so I am a mom of 2 neurodivergent children, and my oldest was unable to go to regular school, had too much anxiety, wasn't able to be parts of groups, and it wasn't working for her. And when I found Amber, when I found you
at the river, at the river school that I led,
and where our children were naked in the water, we talked about, what about the kids like my daughter? What about the kids like a couple other kids that were there that have these limitations? So what inclusivity looks like inside our co-op is having learners of all neurotypes, of all abilities, whether they are hyperverbal and 7 speaking at a 17-year-old level, or they're 7 and they're pre-verbal and only have a few words. These children get to cohabitate in the same space. And it is the most just amazing thing to watch. And as a parent, and this is on completely the opposite side of being a founder and being part of the, running the co-op, as a parent, watching my children grow and going from not wanting to go in the building. We spent 3 months outside the building. And one day, my kiddo just walked in the door, and she went in and participated and sat at the table with everyone. And it's been a wild roller coaster of participating as much as she can physically handle and mentally handle, with the overwhelm, and being able to take that time to sit away from everybody and regather herself and then go back to school.
And I would point out that one of the major ways we are inclusive, you illustrated right there, you allowed her to take the 3 months, because on our campus we have enough space that parents don't have to, what do they say, kiss and go, like when it's that I always think of a conveyor belt of dropping off kids, and they're just
like cattle.
Yeah, and there just isn't space to. I call Jillian's car their office, because when Jillian's daughter is having a hard time, that's where she goes, and that is not only okay, but then someone in authority is rolling their eyes. That is known. That is accepted. That is, oh, she's in her office. One way that we work with families to make a fully inclusive classroom is that we provide so much more room and support for all types of timelines. So one daughter may need 3 months to even go in the building. Another kiddo needs to at least know where their parent is. And so we've prioritized co-working spaces so that working parents can stay on campus. We also will allow parents to stay in the classroom or in the hallway, wherever they need to go for their kids' comfort. And we don't have an arbitrary timeline. We're not counting down, well, you've only got till a month into school, and you have to wrap it up. We don't.
Yeah, there's so many ways that we can be inclusive that you will not see in a public school and you will not see in private schools. A really cool example of inclusivity is one of our learners has a bundle of wires, and that's just it. It's a bundle of wires that they carry around with them, and they weren't allowed to take it to their last school. And this bundle of wires is their safe space. So why not? They're carrying wires around. They're not hurting anybody with them. They're not hitting anybody with them. And it just makes them so happy. And I hear this all the time. And even they have a one-to-one para like my kiddo does. And this other kiddo is just exploding with verbiage and participation. And it's so cool. And they're like, I've never seen this before. And it's like, yes. When you give kids the ability to carry their wires or not wear the itchy socks or just sit outside for an hour, then they have more capacity to pick up the things that they weren't before. And it's really cool to actually see this in practice.
So many of us know hardworking teachers. We might have been one. There's so many teachers and families. And I know that it can be such a soft topic that when I'm talking about some of this, it can sound like an attack. And I want to acknowledge that the teachers I know are doing the very best with what they have. And they're operating within systems that are exclusionary by design. And what I like to tell people is the way you have a fully inclusive classroom is not by giving one teacher 30 kids and throwing in someone with high support needs without an aid. That is not how you do fully inclusive classrooms. And I point out some of the ways that we are showing how you can successfully do fully inclusive classrooms is one, our ratio is very small. So we have a 1 facilitator to 5 learner ratio.
Which would absolutely never happen in public school. And rarely, some private schools are going to have that, but not many.
And we also have parent volunteers some days and the higher support needs learners, the elopers or the kiddos who can't communicate their needs as readily. They have one-to-one paraeducators that are helping them be a part of this space while they're getting their needs met, and our adult facilitators are not feeling stressed like I'm split between my 5 kids and this one learner who really needs a lot of support. So I just kind of like making that statement that I'm not saying our public school system can overnight do what we do. We do it because we're able to have much smaller ratios, so there are just more adults, so that our 10, 15, 20 kids all can get their needs met because there's 4 or 5 adults helping in this group setting.
Right. And even in the public school setting, it is so super hard to get a one-on-one, or they take these the kids that need a little extra help and they put them in special classrooms. And that is something that we did not want. We want all of our children to be able to interact with everyone and their differences and know, like, oh, that's just so-and-so, they have their bundle of wires, or that's so-and-so doing office hours in their car. And I think that's huge. And I want to bring this back to our foundation too. In the foundation, we hold classes and different, give different classes on how to administer support or how to make your classroom inclusive. We also give ways to do that, whether it be a fidget or whether it be a seat kicker. And you're hearing and seeing more and more of this. And right now it's all on the teachers to provide these things or the parents to provide it for their children. And a lot of people can't. So that's something that we do in the foundation. We provide education materials or these supports for the classroom, and we help people navigate the really hard situations when they have that one kid who, you know, is the outspoken one that always wants to talk to their friends that a lot of teachers just turn around and put in the corner. You know, that's how do we help that child come out of the corner and also learn in a way that is safe and fair to everyone?
And we also provide coaching for families navigating the system that they might need to stay in public school. And getting an IEP and getting accommodations can be very tricky, especially if you don't know the ins and outs of the system, if you don't know the right phrases, the right words, who to talk to. So that's something our foundation does as well.
Yeah, and that's going to be a whole nother video that we will talk about IEPs. We'll bring in experts. We'll bring in information. So follow, like, and we're going to have more information on that. And we can help people with IEPs anywhere in the U.S. And you can reach out to us at our foundation page.
And I want to wrap up this introduction to who we are by bringing up something that was surprisingly successful and is what some people know us by first.
Yeah, so what Amber is talking about is the Durham German market. And I don't know if we said this, but we're located in Durham, North Carolina. And we, not even at the last minute, about 6 months before December, decided that we were going to have a fundraiser. And we were going to do it at our school, which is pretty big. We were going to have a couple vendors, band, all that stuff. But we called it the Durham German Market. And within 1 month, somehow our campaign went viral, and we ended up with 10,000 people on our Facebook event, needing a bigger space, moving to Durham Central Park here in Durham. And it was the craziest experience.
So for those of us, I was new to a German market. Jillian, can you tell us where you even got the idea?
So in Germany and the surrounding countries, in the wintertime around Christmas, they have these really amazing local markets. And what's cool is, if you ever travel there, they're a huge deal. Everybody talks about them. But you can go to these different cities and towns and countries and experience their local craftsmanship. They typically have mulled wine, they have food, they have brats, they have music.
And it's all outdoors.
And over there is super, super cold. And everybody is just outside having a great time. It's decorated in lights, and you are just experiencing that community together around the Christmas time. And there's a lot more to it, but it was one of the coolest things that I experienced being over in Germany. I think we went to so many markets.
So we had this idea that we might have 30 vendors, decorate the school, get a band, smaller.
Yeah.
And within a couple months, we had over 80 vendors moved to where the big Durham Farmers Market is. And how many people came to this one day event, Jillian?
So what's funny is we were watching every day. The numbers on our Facebook would go up by like 1,000. And we're getting up to close to the event, and there were 19,000 people on our Facebook page. And Amber, we just kept on going to each other. All of those 19,000 people are going to show up. And what's really funny is they did.
They did.
We had 90 vendors, 5 food trucks, the little German band who was phenomenal. We had beer, we had homemade glühwein, which, we had kind of a mess because it was cold and breakers were tripping everywhere, but it worked out. But we had all these things, and between 15 and 20,000 people came to our event, our very first event.
We heard vendors sending spouses home to restock their tables, and they were saying a lot of vendors said this is our best market to date.
Yeah.
And this was our first fundraising attempt. So very quickly, in 6 months, we've now established a new tradition for Durham. We got written up in a lot of the local newspapers, and I think it's a thing we do now every year.
And we've already started for this year because we're in 2025, and we have 50 vendors, and we haven't even done anything to advertise it yet. The little German band's coming back. We already have the Glühwein. We have a beer vendor. And it's going to be crazy.
It's going to be
and I'm excited.
bigger
and better because we honestly had no idea what we were doing.
We've learned a lot. Where can you
so much.
find out information if you want to be a vendor, or if you want to volunteer, or if you are a Krampus cosplayer? They ended up it wasn't a sponsored event, but they had the Krampus cosplayers went all around downtown and ended at our market around 9 p.m. So it was dark and kind of late, and it was really
so
magical.
Cool. It was very cool because actually Krampus is one of the main parts of our market because Krampus. But if you want to learn more about us, and as we close up this, we are going to put all of our links down below. You have our foundation link, we have our co-op link, and we have our Durham German Market link. Reach out, say hi.
Let us know what questions you have on starting a micro school, working with neurodivergent learners, navigating the system. Let us know what you want to know from two founders who are doing it as it comes up.
Yeah. So, and what things to look forward to on our podcast. We're going to talk about being a micro school. We're going to talk about being a foundation. We're going to talk about business, about IEPs, about different books that we recommend. We're going to have a lot of special guests from our community and from the world at large. And we are so super excited about this.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining the very first episode of The Learning Lens. We look forward to seeing you back here soon.
Thank you.
Bye.